I just want to start out that we will be talking about some of the more sensitive issues that came up during the opera, so please be advised. So, originally not scheduled for the Live in HD season, we have a sort of a late entry into the schedule in The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, an opera that was commissioned by the Met. I I honestly don't know why they couldn't put it on the schedule. Given that this was a North American only release, I'm wondering if there was some sort of, like, law in Europe or maybe, like, a German law that w whatever it was, they didn't necessarily feel comfortable streaming it to an audience outside of the US and Canada. That's more or less my best guess, but eventually, we did get a recording of the Met's commissioned Mason Bates opera. Crap, I can't remember who did the libretto for this. I applaud him too. So, obviously, new opera. What exactly is The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay? Well, essentially, it's two Jewish cousins creating a superhero that sort of inspires people to fight against oppression, specifically the Nazis. Um, I guess in a way it would have been like Captain America, a little different, obviously, if you're familiar with Captain, but I suppose that would be one way of looking at that. So the story is, it starts out with Joseph Cavalier, Joseph Cavalier in Prague in 1939, and he's working on this stunt where he's gonna where he jumps off a bridge into whatever river it was. I can't remember which one, and he's gonna try to escape from the jacket that he's in about 80 seconds. Now, while he's doing this, his sister Sarah, um, she gets she gets found by the SS that are around, and she gets interrogated. She doesn't get arrested or anything like that, but um, it does spook her. Now, and Joseph comes back up. He's like, "That was a success, and what we're gonna do when I do it next time, it's gonna be brilliant." And the next time he does it, and he's drawing this for his cousin 6 weeks later, um, Sam. So he's drawing this 6 weeks later for his cousin Sam Clay, and you see he put himself in a box, specifically a coffin, had the coffin put on a train, and he ends up breaking out of the coffin, getting on top of the train, and jumping off into a river off a bridge, where he then does the escape routine in the river. Makes his way to Lisbon, takes a boat from Lisbon to New York City, and that's where he meets up with his uh his family, his cousins specifically. And so Sam, he's impressed by the art that Joe does, and he's like, "Okay, well, how about if I introduce you to my boss and we'll figure out if we can do something like a comic book, cuz Superman's starting to be really big." He holds up Action Comics 1. I think it's Action Comics 1. I think they had like two different editions of Action Comics. There was 1, and then I think it was 23. I think, if I saw that right in the credits. So then they go to the boss and is like, "Well, let's pitch this superhero," and they show off the art, and it's like, "Okay." And in 3 days, they create this superhero known as the Escapist, whose super strength is more about his mental ability to break out a of a situation or a area, basically something what Joe was working on when he was in Prague, and he even describes it as a super Houdini. And then after that, it kind of uh, it kind of flies through a number of different things, going through a number of different issues of The Escapist, as well as a radio play, which I suppose probably easier to get a radio play up and running quicker than it would be like a TV show or a movie, even now. I mean, then what's a TV show? You barely had movies. Well, you probably had more movies than I'm probably giving credit for. Probably shorter in length, not always talkies, but definitely there. I mean, wasn't that usually where people got their news from? You went to the movie and they had like a newsreel that would show. I'm just thinking back to like Seabiscuit, which was also like a 1930s story. Although that one was a little more real than this one. Then you had a this female character, Rosa Sachs, who was played by Sun Lee Pierce, and she ends up being the love interest for Joe. But more importantly, she is trying to get a round trip ship together that she was calling the Ark of Miriam, that would go to Europe, pick up Jewish refugees, and bring them to America. This idea was based off the real life attempt to get uh, Jewish refugees out of Europe and out of there, which unfortunately also had a similar result as what they showed in the opera, which not all of them sank. Oh yeah, and the Ark of Miriam, it eventually gets funded, but it does get attacked. More on that in a sec. So, anyways, Joe and Rosa, they meet, they go to a bunch of different functions where Joe is sort of um, he sort of meets all these people like a Salvador Dali. And it all very much feels like a whole whirlwind experience. Like at one point, I think it was actually even at this event, uh, Sam comes in and is like, "Hey, we sold the movie rights to whatever studio it was. I can't remember which one it was." But anyways, more importantly, is we get to this point where he's doing a one of his escape routines. Just I think it's just basically a simple straitjacket when Sam, while he's on the roof with Tracy, who is a the voice of the escapist on the radio play, they read the newspaper that says that the Ark of Miriam was sunk. And this is important because Sarah, Joe's sister, was on the ship. And Joe hears about it and he gets all distraught. And the production for this scene, oh my God. So they had obviously Joe was at the forefront and he was distraught and just on his knees and is like, ah. And then they have whoever was playing Sarah. It wasn't much of a role, but she made it work. She did a lot with it. Lauren, apologies if I butcher this. Snuffer. Sorry, that was two F's, not an L. And I don't know if it was her or if it was like a body double that was out there, and they just they had these strings that would that pulled her up, and the backdrop and in front it looked like it was just like water going down. You could even see like air bubbles going in there, and then till eventually the bubbles go away and you see the sun shining down through it, and really kind of terrifying to think about. And really interesting effect. Well done. So Act Two happens. Joe is very vengeful and he's like, I can't defeat these guys with my drawings, so I'm gonna go to Europe and I'm going to defeat them myself. And if it takes sacrificing myself to do so, then so be it. Pretty much is what it was. Obviously, it was done better than that because those guys are professionals and they know how to write those things better than I do off the top of my head. Meanwhile, Tracy, he enlists as well, which affects Sam because, they're both they kinda started a relationship together, and at the, party that would see off the people that are going to Europe, or I guess going to basic training at this point. Yeah, be 42. Wouldn't necessarily be Europe, it'd probably be basic training, then to Africa. I think it's all the soldiers or potential soldiers that are, uh, gay, let's just say it that way, and it gets raided by the FBI who come in, they take a picture of a guy who's gonna be running for Congress, and they take everyone out of there very violently, except for Sam, in which they have the guy who's in charge of it do some sexual assault to Sam, which, I get we definitely did not always do the right thing during World War II. Look up Executive Order 9066. Yikes. I don't know, it just felt like that was maybe a step too far. Like, it's possible in the, original story, I believe this was a book. I believe in the original book, it probably was something like that happened, but it just kind of felt like we're adding something to a story that already had stakes, and there wasn't really any payoff for that. Like, he's already distraught that his, partner is going off to Europe, and he's already feeling not much of anything because, yeah, he and Joe created a character, but and a whole franchise of things, but Joe's the better artist. He doesn't necessarily he can't really move around that well because he was affected by polio, so he's got a one of his legs is in a brace, and so it just felt like it was something that was added on for the sake of adding it on. This might be the only real part of the opera that I think I could say is a net negative in terms of being a well put together production, well put together piece of art. So, anyways, getting back to the story, Tracy and Joe, they're out in wherever, probably Africa at this time, eventually getting to Europe. But you find out Rosa, she's pregnant. Sam is having trouble coming up with a new story, so he and Rosa come up with a new character called Luna Moth, and it's based off this drawing that Rosa and Joe came up with one night when they saw a moth flying in the moonlight. So they came up with a character named Luna Moth. And similar to how the escapist would help lead people from oppression, Luna Moth would help lead people home. Basically, she'd go out, fly at night, find people who are lost, and be like, "Here, let me help take you home." And so they create that character, and it becomes a hit as well. Not sure if it necessarily went through the whole whirlwind radio play, selling up the rights of the movie to someone, mostly because a lot of the second act was very much going back and forth between Joe's time at war and Rosa and Sam at home. Eventually, Joe runs into Tracy on the battleground, and they meet up, they talk, and it's like Tracy's like, "Hey, have you heard anything from home?" And it's like, "I refuse to hear anything from home." Joe is essentially said he's a man without a home, without a home country. He's just doing this to just kill Nazis, more or less. He pretty much even says like, "I'm out here willing to die to kill these people, and I can't seem to die." So he's got dozens and dozens of letters. I think they said hundreds from Rosa, and Tracy's like, "You gotta open those. They tell you you have a daughter." Well, actually, I think they only said child. I don't think Tracy knows it's necessarily a daughter or son. It is a daughter, and right afterwards, Tracy gets shot and killed. He, in one way, regrets not being able to see Sam again, but hopes that he's able to finish his story, go out west, and start a new life for himself. And then Joe goes through and he reads all these letters, and eventually gets to one that has a picture of Luna Moth in there. And Rosa wrote, "I've sent you Luna Moth so that she can help lead you home." And it ends just on this great aria soliloquy, I guess. I don't know if that's a standout aria, but just this is one of those things where the libretto carries the weight of it. You feel homeless. Come home anyway. You feel hopeless. Hope anyway. The world feels broken. Repair it anyway. At a time in our country where we have to deal with, well, let's just call it what it is, a government that's willingly terrorizing its own citizens. And with all the stories that I'm hearing from my brother and what is happening in his adopted hometown, and the fear that everyone there has about what might happen next, I don't know if this is the greatest opera I've ever seen or the greatest opera this century, but I know that this is an opera that is needed now. This was an opera that was made when the world needed it most. And Miles and Andre and Lauren and Sun Lee and Edward were just, they were incredible in presenting one of the most important operas that Mason Bates will ever compose. I've seen other operas where I feel like I feel scared during it, and I feel awful sometimes during it, like Champion and uh Fire Shut Up with My Bones. I'm like, even sometimes Dr. Atomic is that way, even though I love all those operas. And sometimes during those, I'll say, this is an opera that is really good and you should see it once. Don't just see it once. Take someone with you. Take someone new with you each time you see it. This is that important of an opera. Yes, it's when you pare it down, it's essentially a silly opera about people creating a superhero and the lives they lead. Given where we are right now, it means so much more. Obviously, there's this opera is gonna bring up a lot of feelings in a lot of people, and I think that's a good thing. And I think it's gonna be a very good thing if we continue to talk about it and we continue to talk about the feelings that it brings up in all of us, because things are not gonna get better if we keep burying it. I think that's the reason why I was so upset when this opera was not originally scheduled, because there was this feeling that it was going to be an important work, and to hide it and to not let it really speak during a time like this was an absolute travesty. Just like I hope you speak about this opera needed a chance to speak for itself. I don't know how much battery I have left in my camera, so I think I'll leave it at that. A lot of stuff coming up. I still got videos I gotta put out, and I think the next year's schedule is going to come out soon, so we know that video will be recorded. So in the meantime, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Take care.